brought reinforcements.
Oh, great. What, you brought Joey?
Well, I brought the next best thing.
Chandler? You brought Chandler? The next best thing would be Monica.
You know, I would be offended, but Monica is freakishly strong, so...
Look, I drew a sketch of how we're going to do it, okay? Rach, that's you. That's the couch.
Ooh, what's that?
Oh, that's me.
Wow. Certainly think a lot of yourself.
Oh, that's my arm.
Oh, I see. I thought you just really, really liked your new couch.
You know, just follow my lead.
Okay.
Come on, Chandler. All right, okay. Here we go. All right, ready? Yeah. Turn. Okay. Turn. Turn.
I don't think we can turn anymore.
I just don't think it's gonna fit.
Oh, yeah, it will. Come on, up. Up. Yes. Here we go. Pivot. 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 Pivot.
Shut up! Shut up! Shut up!
Okay, I don't think it's gonna pivot anymore. You think?
During the 90s and early 2000s, Thursday nights were, for roughly 25 million Americans, must-see TV night. NBC's lineup of hit shows like Friends, Seinfeld, and ER were a cultural phenomenon that lives on in memes and catchphrases like Ross's "Pivot" from season 5. Ross's detailed plan for success didn't turn out the way he had planned. Software founders often have detailed plans for success, only to find that the market is just as challenging as moving a couch up a set of switchback stairs. When the market spurned Natalie Perez's first software venture, the company pivoted and found success in the QM and WFM space. Her new company, Cisne, is an AI-native WFM platform that is designed to solve the real challenges contact centers have been struggling to solve for decades. It entered public beta this week, and she was kind enough to join the show to discuss a variety of topics related to workforce management. Topics covered in this episode include: what is WFM? Challenges with current WFM technologies, the role of AI agents in customer experience, balancing efficiency and customer experience, agent well-being and burnout in contact centers, lessons from past failures, and introducing the public beta for Cisne.ai, the AI-native WFM platform. Let's get to it. Hey, welcome to 2026, and Natalie Perez, you are next in queue. How are you?
So excited. It's exciting to be here with you. I've been looking forward to this for a while, Rob.
Yeah, me too. I mean, thank you so much for joining me. Just to give people some context, number one, you and I met through ICMI, not the event, but we were both top 25 thought leaders. Congratulations, Natalie. And you are the CEO and co-founder of a company called Cisne, that we'll talk about in a little bit. But you have been in the contact center space and the technology of contact centers for, by by the looks of you, probably only 10 years, but you told me it's been 30 plus years. I'm not sure anyone's going to believe that, but whatever. You even have a couple of patents related to customer experience technology. So you've been in this game for a minute. And AI, look, I get it. We hear about AI all the time. AI is in all kinds of platforms for contact centers, but I want to talk about WFM. And so we should probably lay the groundwork for those that don't know and just start with what the heck is WFM as a function and why is it important?
Sure. So WFM encompasses the process and the technology of forecasting all of your anticipated volume. It used to be inbound and outbound call volume, but of course now you've got your web chats and your emails and all of the other synchronous and asynchronous transactions that go into the contact center and that funnel through there. It goes from forecasting what all of that expected volume is going to be to creating the shifts that we assume we're going to need and then scheduling labor against those shifts. What is interesting, and of course, from that point where you have human agents in the mix, it goes into all of the management of the agent interactions with the system, right, and with the company. Do I need to swap a shift? Can I come in next week? And all of that kind of day to day that they have to contend with. But interestingly, now we also have the AI agents in the mix, and so it isn't just forecasting and scheduling for human agents, but it's also for that AI labor. And more importantly, on the other side of all of that, analyzing our real time environment to see, are we performing the way that we thought we were going to? Are my agents not only handling all of the calls with the right metrics and hitting the KPIs that we expected, but also are my AI agents doing the same thing? Because the beautiful thing about machine learning, of course, is that full circle, eventually that information is going to better inform our forecasts on an ongoing basis. So the premise is that iteratively, we're going to get better and better as we understand what the actual performance of both of those labor pools are.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the AI agents, and I'm going to come back to that in a little bit. But you talked about WFM as a technology, right? It's both a practice and a technology, and there are all kinds of WFM platforms out there. But I'm curious, like in general, like what are some of the existing problems that exist when it comes to applying technology to workforce management?
I'll tell you that one of, I think, the biggest challenges that we face as an industry, and it was what I found most intriguing about really kind of getting into the fray on this side, is that a lot of the technology that we have, our sort of market leaders in the space, have been around for a minute. They are solid solutions that have been around for a long time. But the thing about trying to evolve new functionality, particularly at this level on some of that more antiquated architecture, it's a little bit like trying to plug a GPS into your 1960 Bonneville, right? It's not going to really connect that way. And so I think that that's one of our biggest challenges, is that these organizations are mightily really doing a great job at trying to keep up with this new technology. But at the end of the day, we do have that challenge with those somewhat dated architectures. But more importantly, I feel like one of the things that really is plaguing us on the WFM space is that we don't have a lot of new market entrants, and there's so many theories about why that might be the case. I think, I think it's a not an easy space to enter into. It's not for the faint of heart. And so I think that may be really what dissuades more people. But I really believe that, again, not to keep, like hitting on this AI thing, but I do think that it lends itself really well to this use case, to the use case of WFM. And a really important thing for us was that we wanted to make sure that we weren't going out as part of sort of this AI gold rush, right? Going out and trying to just take AI and find a problem to which we could apply it. We really have long identified this as an issue, long identified this as a gap in the industry. I spent through ICMI largely last year, really immersed myself in the user community to understand where the challenges were. And do we have a legitimate case where we can come in and lend value here? And I feel that we can. And as an aside, AI is part of that offering, but it isn't really the core offering. The fact of the matter is that there's a real opportunity here to help folks with new technology in an area where I feel like it's really been critically lacking for some time.
Yeah, there has always been a challenge in managing workforce, managing schedules, keeping agents both happy with the schedules they have, meeting their needs while also meeting the needs of the business. That has always been a challenge. And then you mentioned these AI agents coming in or virtual agents. And I'm wondering, like, how does that muddy the waters or does it muddy the waters? Like, what challenges are introduced as you introduce AI facing the consumer?
I think it introduces several challenges on the CX side in and of itself, right? We can do a whole different podcast on that topic. Um, I think that there are a lot of questions about the way that AI agents operate. I think that some of the concerns are we applying these AI solutions to interactions that genuinely need humans in the loop, that need individuals on the other side of the phone? Are we losing our ability to connect with our customer? Are we losing our ability to empathize and to understand truly what is driving that interaction? There's a difference between me saying, my Amazon package didn't arrive, and you trying to kind of walk me through that sort of robotically and you understanding that I have a level of anxiety because I need that for a wedding on Saturday and it's 2 weeks behind, right? That's a very light version of that, right? We can go into much deeper types of interactions where you have things like that are of a healthcare nature or of a financial nature, where you have, banking institutions using AI and applying it to different types of interactions that they're engaging with their customers. And um, so I think that there are a lot of concerns around that, around what is the best use of it, number one. Number two, is it really doing what we think it's doing? When a vendor comes in and says, I'm going to take 70% of your interactions off of your hands. And then the reality when we look on the other side is that they took 20 or 30% of those interactions. I think that we'll be able to, I think that that's where the opportunity is for us, by the way, is in being able to really go in and understand, is that really what's happening? We created this great forecast. We understood what you expected was going to happen. We took off this X percent of the transactions off the top that we assigned to these AI agents. This is what we were left with for our human agents during our real-time monitoring, during our comparisons of our actuals versus forecasts. This is what happened in real life. I think that it's better for the contact center that to understand that, obviously, but I think it's also better for the companies delivering these AI agents. We need to measure them like we measure every other KPI in the contact center. I had calls that came in, I had emails that needed to be answered, I had an expected amount of time that I thought that was going to take me. And did that happen for both populations? And I think that over time, having those metrics and having a head-to-head comparison is going to be beneficial to both the AI agent organizations and to the contact center.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And, it's interesting. I happen to work for a company that we have some AI agents as part of our ecosystem. And one of the things that we're very focused on is measuring them in ways that we measure engagements with humans, right? Not from a workforce perspective, but from a quality, from a customer satisfaction, from a resolution perspective. We look at those things very much the same way and really try to identify what are the best use cases for that and which use cases should still be handled by a human. And I think the workforce piece is still a big part of that contact centers need to be identifying, because if I am shifting some of my volume, just as in the past, maybe we shifted some to IVRs, or we shifted some to chat, or we shifted some to email, right? The classic deflection. We still need to understand, how does that impact our human workforce, and what do we need to be prepared for? In particular, one of the things that we see is there are some relatively simple transactional type of use cases that are typically relatively quick, even when you get a human agent, that you can take off the plate. And that brings me to one of these metrics that I want to get your take on, and that is average handle time. Tell me about average handle time. I know anybody who's worked in a contact center knows average handle time, but what are your thoughts on that?
You know, I have so many thoughts on this topic. I was
I
worried that
thought
that
you
might come
might.
up. I have taken a beating from time to time for having some really strong opinions on it, but I have been, to your point, for somewhere between 10 and 34 years in this space. And so I've seen the evolution of the contact center, and the thing that I have not seen evolve a ton in those 34 years is that one metric. I think that the challenge for me with average handle time is that often we assign it, we decide this is what it's going to be, and we will let no fact get in our way of that. That's what we decided it was going to be. I think that there's a little bit of, I think that that's a bad idea. I think that we really need to revisit that, much like we do everything else, right? Everything in the way that we handle our interactions is sort of, we're always talking about this kind of continuous improvement loop, right? You know, the calls come in, we listen, quality, we listen, we monitor, we listen to see how well we did, what did we do well, what do we need to coach against, what do we need to train against, and then, kind of close the loop, we try it again. And I think that average handle time has just fallen outside of that loop somehow. I think that there is the only time that you can justify a static average handle time is at the beginning of a program, because I don't know what my expectation is. I don't know. I'm kind of right. Like, this is, kind of how I'm measuring what I think it's going to be. And so based on what I think it's going to be, I assign it an arbitrary number. It cannot remain an arbitrary number. Your customers will tell you how much time they need for that particular transaction. And I think that it puts agents often in a situation where if they want to hit the metric, they're kind of blowing through it, right? Trying to push that call to wrap up. And if they properly service the call with the necessary amount of time, then they're out of compliance. So they are in a no-win situation on the agent side. I do understand that the flip side of this, and this is where I get a lot of heat sometimes for when I talk about this, is that at the end of the day, you have a lot of different stakeholders, right? And the fact of the matter is that the reason that those numbers exist that way is because we need to protect our margins, and we need to make sure that all the way up the chain, all the way to the C-suite, that we're kind of hitting the right numbers, and that contact center that so often is a cost center, no matter how much we try to make it not so, that it isn't really draining us. And so I do think that there's a balance, and I think that it's, there's the proverbial, there's got to be a better way. And I really think that the better way for me is so basic. I really just think that it comes with, we have so much data right now. You know everything that happened on that call. If you see that you have a team that has an outlier that is always hitting the metric, but everybody else is kind of missing it, you have a problem. You have one guy that maybe is like really somehow managing, but it's killing the rest of the team. That's not good. That's not good for morale. That's not good for CX. That's not good for agent experience. That's not good for churn, by the way. And that also shows up in those numbers that go up to the C-suite. So I think that there's value in always going back and revisiting that, and making sure that what you're saying that interaction is going to require is factually what your customers need it to be, and that you're providing the right level of service for them.
You hit on a couple of things. One word that struck me was balance. And I feel like this is so common sense, but we lose sight of the fact that there is inherently a balancing act between efficiency and delivering the experience and the resolution, however that's defined for your organization, there's a balancing act there. And I think it's important that we understand that customers don't want to spend a bunch of time messing with whatever issue they have that caused them to call or chat or email you. They're not doing it for fun, generally speaking. There is a small outlier of people that are bored and lonely and want to talk to someone, and call centers are where they do that sometimes. But for the most part, that is not the case. And yet, we still want to make sure that we're delivering a good experience, that we are taking care of customers' needs. And that outlier that you talked about, the person who is meeting that target, right? The metric became a target and they're meeting it when nobody else is, probably tells you that they're missing something else. They are probably doing things to hit that number that are not in the best interest of your customers or your company. And it's just important to recognize that this is a balancing act for agents, for customer service, for whatever department that you have. It's a balancing act.
For sure. And conversely, there's also an outlier on the other side, right? You have everybody hitting it, and you have that one guy that's going, 300 seconds over on every call. That's where you have an issue, right? And that point, that's a really easy one, because now I'm as if my team AHT, if you can measure your entire team against that AHT and have your average be within a few, seconds here and there, and that one guy is just missing it by a wide margin, then you can address that separately. But I think the real easy tell is when your entire team is missing it by a lot. I use this very exaggerated example from time to time, and this seems like one such time to use it. But when I was quite young, and when I first started in the contact center space, I was quite literally, and I always tell everybody this is how you know how old I am, because when I say I was on the phone, I always do this and pick it up and put it to my ear, right, as opposed to this thing. But I used to answer calls for the flood insurance hotline at FEMA. And when those calls come in, my only job was to say, "Hey, Rob, I just want to know what your address is. I'm going to tell you if you're in a flood zone, not in a flood zone, unfurl a map," because also that's how we used to look at maps back in the day, and tell you based on that address, this is where you're located. This is a flood zone, not in a flood zone. And based on your answer, I would send you one of two directions to other FEMA staff that would be able to help you. This was in the wake of Hurricane Andrew 92, Category 5 here in South Florida. And we had some targets of what we expected those calls were going to be. And also, if you call me and you just went through this thing and you spend the night hearing this wind blowing and all of this, your half your roof is gone and your fence is gone, and all of these things just happened to you, you just went through a thing, and you're going to need a minute. You're going to tell me about it. And so it doesn't matter how much time I circle back around and I'm like, right, but what's your address? People just want to tell you the story. Similarly, you have that in every environment. You do have customers that you need to kind of push a little bit up. We need to get you to the point, but also you need to make space for people that are calling you with an issue. Think of all of the different things that we service as contact centers. And that's the beautiful thing about being in this industry, right? We get to see a little bit of health insurance. We get to see a little bit of the financial industry. We get to see retail. We get to see all of these varied industries. We kind of like have a bird's eye view into every one of these different industries. But we can see some commonality in that there are times that people are really invested in what is happening to them right now. As a contact center, you just want to move on to the next thing. But that person, if I didn't get that package and the wedding is tomorrow, that's a problem. And I'm emotionally invested in this moment. I don't want you to just tell me where it is or tell me what happened or give me a refund. That's not helpful. It's like when DoorDash doesn't bring my food and then they give me $5 back and they're like, "Did this help you?" "Nope, still hungry," right? That's not that helpful. And so I think that being able to really take the time that we need to just connect with the customer. There's actual research that says that a loyal customer, a customer that's loyal and committed to your brand, will leave after one bad interaction. That's staggering. If it's like going to a restaurant, every once in a while I go and I have a crappy meal and I have to remind myself I've been coming here for the last 10 years. They're usually pretty good. It was a night, right? But that's not really true for a lot of areas. There's actual research that just says that they will leave. It doesn't matter how long they've been with you and how much they've loved you. One bad experience and they're out of there and on to the next thing. And so it's worth taking that extra couple of seconds and again and balancing, going back to that point, making sure that we're meeting all of the necessary metrics and needs of the stakeholders at every level, that we're not killing our profit margins, but that we're also not killing our agents, not increasing our churn, not driving them out the door, not increasing burnout, which in turn is going to impact your CX and cause customers to walk out the other side of the door. Um, and just make sure that we're delivering a good customer experience, and that takes time.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'd love to talk a little bit more about your experience with FEMA and Hurricane Andrew. And that strikes me as one of these situations, and I've experienced some similar situations in my days in the BPO world where you really doesn't matter what kind of WFM you're executing, it's almost impossible to meet the demand given the resources that are there. And I imagine that was not only difficult from the standpoint of the subject that you're talking about and what people have gone through, but also I have to imagine, right, the calls are just back to back to back and there's probably not a lot of break. Can you talk about those types of situations?
Yeah, I always tell people that taught me so much about, number one, empathy to other people, because while I did have a task that I needed to complete and I had, beginning, a middle, and an end, that wasn't going to be what I was going to get on the other side. It also gave me the understanding of how difficult it is for our agents when they had a call that was about, if I didn't get that Amazon package, maybe I'm like, okay, great, just give me my $10 back and I'll move on. I'm very cheap for wedding gifts, apparently. Um, but you're gonna have a person that's gonna be like losing it on these people, right? Like just killing them. And we had that a lot in those calls at FEMA, because they were very, very emotional. And because often people would see a number for disaster recovery, and it would say flood insurance in the fine print, but they're not realizing that's a department. I may not be the person you need based on what you're calling about. And then they're losing it and they're emotional and they're crying and they just, again, they went through their thing. And on the other side of that, and if you think about it back in the day, I'm sure that it's different. Now we're talking about 1992, when we actually had phone, phone, phone. And, like one of them maybe had a couple of buttons that I can pick up, and some others just were like direct one lines. And so when you hang up a phone and you've got a queue, the next one literally ring, and you answer it and you move on to the next thing. And you don't have a minute as an agent. You don't have a moment to breathe, to catch your breath and say, "Oh, I need a minute. I need to process this. I need to just calm down. My heart rate is really high. I'm so upset." Maybe it's just I feel so bad for this person. I mean, there are calls that I would be outright weepy when I got off the phone. But the next thing that I do is when that thing clicks is, thank you for calling, and you move on to the next one, and you don't have a second. I think that is one of the things, by the way, that not to kind of tie this back to WFM, but it is one of the things that we found was a gap in WFM that we're looking to address. And it is agent burnout, because guess what? With AI, we can see what is changing in real time. We don't need to look at the reports to see what happened in our environment yesterday. We can see that, hey, Rob is taking a little bit longer. His cadence is changing. His tone is changing. We can measure any number of things to decide maybe we move up his break a little bit and just kind of force that break through the WFM. There are ways to be able to leverage this technology to actually help in those cases of burnout, which we have a lot in the contact center. And we're so stringent, right? I was having a conversation with somebody that said, and I have seen this happen in BPOs. My background is BPO as well. And, I know environments where if you went to the potty, I know how long it took you before you got back. Like, don't go hiding in the bathroom because I know how many breaks you had, and if you snuck another one in, it's gotta be quick. Um, and that's difficult. That the aging population is the most stressful. It's the most stressful environment that I think, in any contact center, that's the most difficult job out of anybody. And I think that it would serve us well. We hear so much now, and the bright side is that I'm seeing a lot more of this, by the way, of the agent well-being and psychological safety of the agent population. And so I think that there's something really great in that I'm hearing that spoken of more frequently. But when I was having a conversation with somebody not too long ago, where I said, and speaking of our some of the different metrics that we're tracking in the WFM, and I said, and here we track the psychological safety of the agent. We track the agent well-being. We see, we look at burnout factors. Some of the things that I already mentioned to you could be considered burnout factors. And based on those different numbers, we come up with a score that says this person likely needs a minute. And this is how we can look at how making that change how does that impact the agent? How does that impact the business outcome? How does that impact CX, right? That's going to have an impact that ripples across all of those three areas. And somebody on the other side of the call said to me, well, one of the things, and by the way, it was a great idea, something that we've since taken and factored in as well into the system. But the person said, what is that going to cost me?
Mm.
And great question, right? As you said, I really want to just be able to see on the screen. I want that to be one of the numbers that you're feeding me. I want you to tell me exactly how much it's going to cost me, because I can tell you that the agent well-being, if this is what my number is to make sure that they're feeling better, that's not ever going to be my priority. It's going to be one of my other two metrics. It's going to be maybe my CX, and it's likely going to be my business outcome. It's going to be how is it impacting my stakeholders. Um, and I was taken aback by how quickly that came out. That's never the agent well-being is never my priority. How much this will cost me is my priority. And it's a legitimate point, right? How much that is costing you is a valid, a legitimate point. I don't want to say anything that makes it sound like, because I've managed call centers as well. And I understand that I need to be able to hit my numbers. I can't just be bleeding money into this, right? At some point, it's a losing proposition. It's just bad business. But there's, back to that word, balance, right?
Hmm.
There's, if to the extent that you can consider what this is doing to the agents and how they are performing and what that is costing you, because I hate to keep repeating the same thing, but churn has a price.
Yeah, absolutely
Right?
it does, right?
I gotta advertise. I gotta find new people. I'm understaffed for a period of time, and that's impacting my ability to address the transactions on a timely basis. I have to train. I've got this guy on the floor now, and guess what? I need some ramp up time, because it's not going to be that they're going to be killing it as soon as they say hello on the first time, their first time. And so there's a cost associated with all of that. So I think that really understanding what that is and understanding where we can maybe give a little more to make
Hmm.
sure that they're feeling comfortable and happy and safe. And by the way, I think it's a difficult job. I think it's an underappreciated job, but I also think it's a job that can lead to so many things. The number of people that I have met that started on the phones far outweigh the people in the contact center that just came in and applied for a manager job. So many people just came because they were on the floor. They became insane, right? You were on the floor and you became a team lead and you became a soup and you became a manager, or you moved into QA, or in my case, I moved into technology over time. You kind of worked my way through the ranks within the contact center operational side, and then transitioned into tech, which was great, by the way, for me, because what it gave me was a really good understanding of what the users need, because I was the user. So I know what we need on that side, and I know that to be true for you as well.
Yeah. You know, so a couple of things. It's not just the churn, it's the call in the following day that says, I I got to take a day off. Like I can't go in today because I'm just feeling beat up, right? So when you talk about churn has a cost, But even when we don't get to that point yet, there's still a potential cost of agents just saying like, I'm just not going in today. So that's one other thing to consider. But one of the things that you were talking about in this agent well-being thing, which I find fascinating, and the reason that I find it fascinating is more and more our contact centers are virtual contact centers. Obviously, 2020 came, just about everybody went home, and we function that way. A lot of contact centers have come back into brick and mortar operations, but there's a huge amount of agents that work from home. They never see their supervisor in person. And when I think to how a contact center operates in a brick and mortar environment versus a virtual environment, as a supervisor, I might be able to tell Natalie's having a rough day and maybe I should get her off the phones for 10 or 15 minutes. Maybe we move a coaching session just so I can give Natalie a break today because it's been that kind of day. And I can see that and I can hear it because I'm in the aisle. Whereas in our virtual world, I'm probably not getting that kind of information unless I've got technology that's helping deliver it to me. And what I hear you say is there is a potential to fill in that gap, to kind of give you that in the aisle knowledge that was lost when we moved to not being in brick and mortar.
For sure, because there are certain things about the behavior of a human that are telltales that you can see across a room. I can see it on your face immediately, but guess what? I can also hear it in your voice. I can also learn it from some of the different metrics that we were discussing. I can tell if something is taking you a few seconds longer. I can tell if your QA scores are always at a certain level. And because right now also we can obviously monitor our QA is also kind of our scores also could come in real time in a lot of solutions. I can see what is happening in real time or in near real time, and I can make those decisions based on what is happening. I can see your performance immediately against other people. There are so many different metrics that we can track now instantaneously using AI. And that's one of the things, right? Is, AI is kind of it's going to be a blessing and a curse for a hot minute here, I think, right? Because I get all of the challenges, and I spend a lot of time on LinkedIn where I see the people that posted the comment that was fully written on LinkedIn and then fully responded to one of my posts with a link with a kind of an AI comment. I see all of the so-called AI slop, and I also hear on the other side all of the concerns of, is this going to replace all of the people? Are we trying to just, push everybody out with these solutions? And are they performing in a way that's even a legitimate path? But the reality is that there are some really good, valuable use cases for it. There are some cases where it legitimately is working exactly as it appears to be working. Because what you have a little bit also, you get a little bit of cynicism, right? In that, it really doesn't work that well, and some of it doesn't. The number of times that ChatGPT apologizes to me throughout the course of a week, it doesn't always work, and it's always very sorry that it didn't do it. And similarly, that applies to, I think, AI universally. But in other cases, I think that the thought that this is vaporware and it's never gonna stick. I think that that's a little bit of a fallacy, right? I don't think that that's the case. I think that some of the numbers that we hear from the big analyst firms. I don't know if it's going to be handling 85% of all of my volume in 5 years. I don't know if that's going to be a thing. But I do think that it's going to be handling a pretty respectable number in 5 years. I do think that it's going to get better. Um, I think some of it is really good now. I think that there are some companies that you call today that you would be stunned when they say, "Thank you for calling. My name is Natalie. How may I help you?" That's not a person. I've heard some that are amazing. The quality is really, really amazing, and it takes a long time. And even for kind of an experienced ear, sometimes it's difficult to tell that that's not a person on the other side. And so I think that I think that there are some really good use cases for it. I've spoken long enough on this, by the way, that I forgot the question. I just went off on a thing with it. But I stand by all of my points on this topic.
You stand by it, and that's what's important. So now this isn't your first foray into WFM tech, right?
Is not.
It's not.
It's not. No. I actually co-founded and owned a company previously that had a series of different technologies. And that included WFM at the very tail end of it. We started off building a product that nobody wanted, quite candidly, at my first go. I've had, so I think that some of my best ideas came from terrible failures. And luckily, after investing all of this time and money into creating this product that nobody wanted because I had done no real market fit research for it as it happened. Somebody was kind enough to say, you know what, if you make these changes to it, I need something that I can't afford a big CRM platform, but I feel like if we made these changes, I can use it as that. And so we thought, okay, great, it's a CRM. That's what we are now. And we made those changes and we kind of pivoted. And we came across, a couple of companies that just kept giving us. We were very fortunate because we've been in the space for a minute. We know a lot of people, and we had somebody say, "Hey, do you think you can create kind of a rudimentary QM feature?" We kind of became a little bit of the cheap version of every major solution, right? They were like, yeah, I can't afford this big name product, but I need this function. Can you add it? Sure. And we would say yes to everything. We just wanted to kind of get it out there. And what happened is that just building these different point solutions for different gaps in other technologies sometimes, or just for people that really couldn't afford the brand name version of the technology, we grew and we had the company for 15 years. We exited 3 years ago. And at the very end of that, the one thing that I did not want to do ever was WFM. We just knew it was going to be a lift. We knew that, and actually I lied. At WFM and CCAS, I remember many, many years back thinking anything that requires me to hire somebody with the title of audio engineer is not anything that I want to play with. That's just far outside of my scope. And I felt that way about WFM. The math of it all is so far beyond me that I just wanted nothing to do with it. And amazingly, as we went out and we thought, because we had this QM product, a lot of people were looking for solutions that had both QM and WFM. And we couldn't escape that we were losing market share to vendors that had both as we continued to grow and became legitimate players in the space and entering some of these different conversations. And we realized we're going to have to add it. Let's see what is out there. And that was our initial approach because we really did not want to create it ourselves. So we looked for solutions that could integrate well within our platform and that we can kind of put under our own skins and OEM. And that really was my first foray into learning that when you dig deep beneath some of these solutions that have more modern names, you find technologies that the core of the platform was architected, I kid you not, in 1988, in 1991. So some of the solutions that we found that were the newer ones were still about 10 years ago. So, maybe circa 2015. So we decided, okay, this is not going to work because it's not going to play nice with the other toys we had. Our big thing was we're highly stable. We got very few calls for support. It's once we built it, once we launched it, it just ran, and we wanted to keep it that way. So we decided that we're just going to go ahead and create our own. It was a lift. And even it was so much of a lift that the first, again, it's going back to the things that some of the best things that I've created came out of things that I really blew it on. The first time that I showed this product to an analyst, this analyst looked at it and with all of the love in their heart, they said, "Do you want me to tell you really what I think? Or do you want me to just give you a high level?" And I thought, whatever will hurt me least. Just tell me that version of your feedback.
Please don't give me all the
Yeah,
pain.
no, yeah, let's not do. Oh, do you want me to be honest with you? That was how she said. You want me to be honest with you? No, I do not
No,
want you to be honest with me.
sugarcoat it, please.
Yeah. No, lighten it up a lot for me. Um, but it was really valuable because I thought, okay, well, this is not going to work. We went back. We actually revamped it. We're really good about taking feedback, asking for feedback, and legitimately taking it to heart. Like if I go there and I say, "Hey, Rob, can you look at this and tell me if you think it's ugly?" I really want you to tell me if you think it's ugly because if you don't tell me, guess what? Every customer that doesn't purchase it is going to tell me. I'd rather hear it from a friendly voice. Um,
Yeah.
and so when we go out and we seek feedback, we really take it very, very much to heart. We fold it into the solutions. And all of this to say that even what we created 60 years ago, even that by comparison to what we're able to do now is dated. And actually 7 years ago when we created that solution. Um, because if you were developing with AI tools, or developing advanced AI using and having access to that deep tech with which you can do that. If you were doing it back then, you were AWS or you were Meta or you were Google. Those guys had that, right? Everybody didn't have ChatGPT on their desktop, let alone all of the tools that we've been able to leverage to really accelerate development now and to offer a feature set that truly I could not have imagined 7 years ago or 8 years ago when I started developing WFM. It's amazing the difference in what we can do just 8 years later.
Yeah. I think the lesson there is don't be afraid to pivot. Sometimes, right? You just need to
For
pivot.
sure. Listen,
So,
yeah, don't be afraid to pivot and understand that, that there is all of the growth comes in your moments of discomfort.
yeah.
Anything that's true for your personal life as it is for your professional life, right? When if everything is just kind of humming, what are you learning? You're learning that I killed this day. Everything I'm doing is exactly as it should be. And that doesn't usually go that way. But in those moments where you get really uncomfortable, where somebody tells you, this doesn't work for me, this doesn't look good, this is a terrible UI, this doesn't meet all of the features that I'm requiring. All of those things, all of those moments where, you get those little stings are moments of reflection for you to realize, okay, this is where I can go better, where I can do better.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. So, Cisne is in beta right now. And so, if someone was looking for potentially a new WFM solution for their contact center and they were interested in joining your beta, how would they go about doing that?
They would go to our homepage at cisne.ai. And what we have there right now actually is exclusively the beta sign up page for people to go in and inquire and get early access to our founder program, which comes with all sorts of fun perks, not the least of which is, first of all, it's obviously some pretty steep discounts, including a free trial period, but also the ability to really participate and engage in these conversations with us and have a hand and an influence in what this product looks like to the rest of the world once it goes into general availability. And we're really looking for people and for companies that understand WFM. We've been a mistake that I will not make twice is going out and not doing any market fit research, any product fit research. And so one of the things that we did was we held a lot of focus groups leading up to this and had a lot of really, really smart people. It's been heartwarming to see in the comments on my announcement today, all the people that said, thank you for the sneak peek and for letting me share some of my feedback and some of my thoughts. And they'll see that when it rolls out, they'll see exactly where their imprint is on that product based on feedback that they shared early on. And so we're looking for those organizations that are willing to participate at that level and say, this is exactly how this works in my environment now. And this is what I would love to see this do. We have a clean slate, and that's the beauty about having no technical debt, right? We're
Yeah.
starting with, just from scratch. And this is the window to come in and say, this is if I was whiteboarding my own product, this is what I would love to see in it. So if you are one of those people, for sure,
Yeah.
go visit Cisne AI and jump on the bandwagon with us.
Well, longtime listeners, you know the deal. Go down to the show notes. You'll find that link if you're interested in checking out that beta. And Natalie, I am so glad that we became friends through ICMI. I am so glad that we've had this opportunity to talk about WFM and talk about what's coming in WFM, because I do think that as every piece of the contact center is undergoing change today because of technology and will continue to undergo change, I feel like WFM is one of those bits that gets ignored a little bit by a lot of people. And I'm glad that we're not ignoring it and that we could talk about it today. So thank you for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Rob. This has been a real treat, as has been honestly knowing you overall. I don't know if you recall this, or if you realize that this was the case. I think I may have mentioned it to you in the past, but you were my first ICMI friend. I kind of jumped in and I just figured I'm gonna go out to all of the future contributors and all of the thought leaders and say, hi, my name is Natalie. I'm part of this mix. I would love to know how you got into this and kind of get to know you a little bit. And you were the first guy that took me up on it. You immediately said yes. I had a couple of people that thought maybe I was trying to pitch them a thing and never called me back. I ran into them at ICMI Expo and I caught him eventually.
Yeah.
But you immediately said, yeah, let's chat. And the great thing about that was that every coffee chat and every next meeting for the first few that I was in, you were always in my breakout room. So it was a good friendly face to have and a great intro into that ICMI universe. I'm really, really appreciative of that. And you've been a real treat to get to know.
Well, you as well. And that was one of the reasons that I wanted to invite you on the podcast so that we could, have this chat. And yeah, always enjoy chatting with you. So thank you.
Likewise, Rob. Thank you so much for having me. This has been fun.
Next in Queue is produced by me, Rob Dwyer. Theme music is courtesy of Big Red Horse. If you enjoyed this episode, please share with at least one person. Word of mouth is the best way for people to discover new content. And thanks for listening.